At a few minutes before 9 in the evening, on July 3rd, 2009, on the casino floor of the Silverton Lodge on the southern edge of Las Vegas, a middle-aged man in a polo shirt is sitting at a video poker machine, drinking water. In under an hour, he hits 5 jackpots. Each one carries odds of roughly 820 to 1. 5 of them, back to back, on a single machine by a single player who has not left his seat. He has not slid a card into the cabinet. He has not opened it. He is not wearing a device, and there is nothing up his sleeve for a camera to catch. He has touched the machine in exactly one way. He has only pressed the buttons the machine itself is showing him. His name is John Kane, and the candlelight flashing above his head, the little tower that signals a jackpot to the whole floor, is about to bring 3 security officers to his chair. This is the story of a man who beat the most surveilled industry on Earth without breaking a single rule it could name, and the 4 years the United States government spent trying to prove that he had. We are going to follow him from a row of 4 machines in a downtown Las Vegas casino, to the high-limit room at the Wynn, to a racetrack casino in western Pennsylvania, and finally into a federal courtroom in Nevada. We are going to meet the company that built the machine, the surveillance manager who finally caught the pattern, and the prosecutor who tried to call a sequence of button presses a federal computer crime. And we are going to meet the friend John Kane brought in to help him, a man who could not stop and who paid for all of it. The question underneath everything that follows is deceptively simple. If a machine offers you a button and you press it and it pays, have you stolen anything at all? To understand what John Kane did, you have to understand the machine he was sitting in front of. In 2009, the most widely deployed video poker platform in the world was called the Game King. It was built by International Game Technology, IGT, a company out of Reno, Nevada, with annual revenue measured in billions. If you sat down at a video poker machine anywhere in America that year, the odds were good you were sitting in front of a Game King. These machines are not toys. In the United States, they are regulated gambling devices, certified and recertified by state gaming control boards before they are ever allowed to take a single dollar. The Game King firmware had been examined, approved, and trusted for years. There were no known exploits. There was no documented case of a player beating one from the outside. And John Kane knew the Game King better than almost anyone who ever played it. He was not a casual gambler. He was a video poker obsessive who had studied the game for decades, a man who at one point kept a Game King machine in his own home. He knew the pay tables. He knew the odds. He knew, by feel, exactly what the machine was supposed to do at every moment. Which is why, one afternoon in the spring of 2009, he noticed the instant it did something it was not supposed to do. It is April 2009 at the Fremont Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, an unglamorous place in Glitter Gulch with cheap drinks and a row of 4 Game King machines that John Kane liked. Kane finished a modest session and pressed cash out. He intended to carry his small winnings to another machine. He had not hit anything. His hand was not a winning hand. The jackpot candle lit up anyway. The machine rang. It reported a payout of more than $1,000. $1,000 he had not won. Kane knew that machine inside out, and he knew this was impossible. A Game King does not pay unless you hit the sequence. so he did something almost no professional gambler would do. He flagged down a floor supervisor and told him the machine had paid him money he had not earned. The supervisor laughed. He thought Kane was joking. The $1,000 was his to keep. Kane walked away with the cash and one certainty he could not shake. Somewhere inside that machine, buried under 7 years of firmware nobody had ever cracked, there was a flaw. He did not yet know what he had touched to trigger it. He just knew it was real, and he intended to find it again. Kane was not a programmer. He could not read the code on the circuit boards inside the cabinet, so he reached for the oldest method there is: trial and error. He needed a second pair of hands, someone he trusted to sit at a second machine and test sequences for hours. He called Andre Nestor. Nestor was a younger man, a gambling friend from years back. He was superstitious to the point of pain. A man still haunted by a Pennsylvania lottery jackpot he believed he had missed 15 years earlier by failing to play the numbers from a dream. He had spent his life chasing the one big win that never came. When Kane told him there was a machine that could be made to pay on command, Nestor came to Las Vegas. The two of them sat at the Game Kings for hours, changing denominations, inserting bills, cashing out, watching. And slowly, the machine gave up its secret. The flaw lived in two features working together. The first was the ability to switch the denomination you were playing, a penny a credit, 50 cents a credit, $1 a credit. The second was the double up feature, the optional gamble offered after a winning hand. Here is what they found. You could sit at the lowest denomination, a single penny a credit, and lose almost nothing for as long as you liked. Then, when you finally caught a genuinely big hand, 4 aces or a royal flush, you could perform a precise sequence of moves that left the machine's internal bookkeeping confused, switch the denomination up to its maximum, and trigger the payout again at the new, far higher value. A hand worth a few dollars at a penny a credit became worth thousands at $1 a credit. And once they understood it, they could replay the same winning hand over and over and over again. You had complete control, Nestor would later say. You could win $500,000 in one day. They pulled more than $100,000 out of the Fremont alone. The casino noticed the pattern, the same two men always using double up, and simply switched the feature off. The wins stopped cold, which only confirmed what Kane and Nestor already knew. The bug was real. They had the recipe. And every Game King in America had the same flaw. There was one problem with a secret this good. Only 2 people knew it, and they had begun to argue about who deserved the larger share. Kane felt the plan was his, the discovery was his, the work was his. Nestor felt that he had cracked the double up half of the puzzle, which made them equals. Neither man would move. So they did the only thing 2 people who no longer trust each other can do with the same secret. They split up and worked it separately. Kane kept Las Vegas. He took the recipe into the high-limit rooms, where the denominations ran higher and the payouts ran into the stratosphere. On one machine at the Wynn, a hand of 4 nines paid out on and off for days. A single exploited hand eventually returned him $225,240. Nestor went home to Pennsylvania, where the casinos had only existed for a few years, and where his own streak seemed to have no ceiling at all. For a few weeks in the early summer of 2009, Two men 1,400 miles apart sat in front of identical machines, pressing the buttons the machines offered, and watched the jackpots come. What neither of them understood was that casinos do not just watch players, they watch machines. And across several properties, the same model of machine had begun paying out at numbers that no honest game king had ever produced. Somewhere, someone was about to start pulling the footage. Which brings us back to the Silverton on the evening of July 3rd, 2009, and to a man named Charles Williams. Williams was the Silverton's director of surveillance, and that night, he was watching John Kane. 5 jackpots in under an hour, each at odds of better than 800 to 1 on one machine, from one player who only drank water and only pressed buttons. No machine behaves that way. Williams knew it, and he did not need to know how Kane was doing it to know that it had to stop. When Kane cashed out and rose to leave, casino security met him. They walked him off the floor. They sat him in a back room, and at one point they handcuffed him to a chair. They confiscated the cash he was carrying, $27,000. And then John Kane found himself looking at the face of an armed agent of the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Here is the detail that would matter more than anyone in that room realized. The board sent 2 engineers to the machine itself. They pulled the logic tray. They examined the EEPROM, the chip that holds the firmware. And there, for the first time in the 7 years the Game King had been on casino floors, they found the bug. Kane had not planted it. Kane had not altered it. It had been there, in the certified code, the entire time. He had simply been the one man patient enough to find it. They charged him with suspicion of theft and let him go. But 1,400 miles away, his old partner had not stopped. And Andre Nestor was about to make John Kane's troubles look small. Nestor had been warned. Kane told him the operation was over, that the casinos had caught the pattern, that it was time to stop. Nestor did not stop. He kept working the Game Kings in Pennsylvania, taking close to $500,000 of his own, until the night the Meadows Casino and Racetrack in North Strabane simply refused to pay out on his winnings. To the house, he was now a marked man. When the Pennsylvania State Police raided his home, it became the largest gambling scandal the state had seen since it legalized slot machines 5 years earlier. They seized his winnings. They charged him with 698 felony counts. He was given 10 days in jail to sit and think about the rest of his life. 698 counts for a man whose entire crime was pressing the buttons a machine kept offering him. And then, just as the state cases were heading toward a jury, federal officials stepped in and took both men. The Justice Department had decided this was an interstate crime, which meant the stakes were no longer measured in days. They were measured in years. Here is where the story stops being about money and becomes about a single, enormous question. The federal government charged Kane and Nestor with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and with violating the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the foundational American anti-hacking law written in the 1980s to prosecute people who broke into computers they had no right to touch. The key phrase in that law, repeated in nearly every case built on it, was exceeding authorized access. The Assistant United States Attorney Michael Chu laid out the government's theory plainly. To let a player call up previously played hands at will, he argued, would remove the element of chance and obviate the whole purpose of gambling. He added that it would certainly be contrary to the rules of poker. The defense answer was just as plain and far harder to dismiss. Kane's attorney, Andrew Levitt, put it in a single sentence. All these men did, he said, was press a sequence of buttons that they were legally entitled to press. Nestor said it more bluntly to the press. They put a machine on the floor, he said, and if it has programming that does not take your money and lets you win, they will throw you in jail. That was the whole case, reduced to its bones. The machine was a public terminal, sitting on an open floor, inviting anyone to feed it money and press its buttons. It was not locked. It was not password protected. Every button Kane pressed was a button the machine itself was displaying. Under a law about unauthorized access, how could pressing the buttons a machine offers you possibly be unauthorized? For roughly 18 months, the arguments went back and forth, each side claiming the stronger ground. Then the magistrate judge assigned to the case, Cam Fehrenbach, began drawing pointed parallels to other computer crime cases that had nothing to do with casinos, cases where courts had refused to let the government turn ordinary use of a system into federal hacking. He pressed the prosecutors to justify their theory. And somewhere in there, the government tried one last lever, the oldest one there is. They went to Kane and Nestor separately and offered each man the same deal. The first one to testify against the other would walk away with probation and no prison time. The other would face the full weight of the law. It is the prisoner's dilemma, the classic trap, and it usually works. Two men, each afraid the other will talk first, each racing to betray. Neither of them took it. In November of 2013, Magistrate Judge Cam Fehrenbach issued his ruling, and the heart of it came down to a few clean findings. A game king, he held, was not a protected computer of the kind the anti-hacking law was written to guard. It sat on a floor, took cash, displayed buttons. More important than that, the defendants had not exceeded any authorized access, because there was no access to exceed. They had interacted with the machine in exactly the manner it was built to be used. The fact that a particular sequence of perfectly legal button presses produced a payout the manufacturer never intended was not, the court found, a federal crime. To rule otherwise, he warned, would transform whole categories of ordinary behavior into crimes simply because a computer happened to be involved. He recommended that the central charges be dismissed. The federal district court accepted it. The wire fraud charge was dropped. The Pennsylvania state counts had already quietly fallen away. By early 2014, after 4 years, 2 arrests, a federal raid, and nearly 700 felony counts, the case against John Kane and Andre Nestor was simply over. They had been told they were thieves. A federal court had just found that, under the law, they were not. The aftermath did not look like victory. IGT had long since taken the bug apart, rewritten the code, and pushed the fix out to its machines. The flaw that John Kane spent years of his life learning to exploit was patched out of existence, quietly, everywhere. The money was mostly gone. The casinos clawed back what they could. The Silverton kept Kane's seized cash. And Andre Nestor, the man who could not stop, the man who took the 698 counts and the nights in a county jail, was left with almost nothing but a tax bill. The IRS came looking for roughly $250,000 in taxes on winnings he no longer had. He told reporters he was broke. John Kane said nothing at all, to anyone, and has stayed silent ever since. In the narrowest financial terms, they had beaten Las Vegas. In every broader term, Las Vegas had beaten them. But the thing John Kane left behind outlasted the money by a wide margin. His case became one of the early, clean illustrations of an idea that was working its way through the American courts. The idea that the anti-hacking law cannot criminalize the way a person uses a system they are otherwise allowed to use. That using a machine, the way it lets you use it, is not and cannot be unauthorized access. Years later, in 2021, the Supreme Court itself would narrow that exact phrase, exceeds authorized access, and pull the law back from precisely the kind of overreach the government had attempted against two video poker players in Nevada. A man who studied a gambling machine for the better part of his life had, without ever intending to, helped draw the outer edge of American computer crime. There are still tens of thousands of Game King machines on casino floors around the world. They still take cash from anyone who walks up. They still show the same buttons in the same order, with the double up feature still waiting after a winning hand. Buttons are all still there. The bug is not. John Kane is by now a man in his late 60s who has not been back to Las Vegas in well over a decade and has never had to walk into another courtroom. He did not break into the machine. He did not alter its code. He did not, by the finding of the largest legal system on earth, break a single American law. He just pressed the buttons in the order the machine offered them until it paid. If stories like this one are why you are here, the buried cases and the people the official version leaves out, subscribe and stay with us. There are more of them than anyone wanted you to find.